Today we're setting up and skating the perfect size trucks that I didn't even know existed. These are the Ace AF1 Hollow 77s, which have an axle width of 9.5 inches and is pretty rare to find. This 10-inch curb killer deck here is only 10 inches in the center here. It's actually 9.5 inches over the trucks. When I have skated this board, I had to decide whether I wanted my 9-inch or 10-inch trucks on this, which are both wrong for this board. Staying within a 1/4 inch smaller or bigger than your board is the general rule of thumb when it comes to choosing the right size trucks. Finding the right size trucks for an egg board though can be tricky, since the measurement over the center and what the board is labeled as is much bigger than the actual measurement over the bolts here. So to stay within that 1/4 inch bigger or smaller than the 9.5 over the trucks here, both my 9-inch and 10-inch trucks are way outside of that. But I wasn't actually aware that they had 9.5 inch trucks out there, so obviously you can see why I was so excited to get my hands on these Ace AF1 Hollows in a 9.5 inch width, especially since the AF1 trucks are one of my favorite trucks out right now, and these are hollow. So these won't just fit this 10-inch board perfectly, but they'll make that whole setup lighter as well because it's hollow. I'm super excited to skate these today, so I'm going to set them up right now and head to the park so I can start warming up and wearing these in. There are a couple of negatives that come with the AF1 trucks though, so I'll go over those and how to fix them after I get a little warm-up session on these. These trucks actually feel perfect. Last time I skated this board, I had my 10-inch slappy inverted trucks on it, which didn't feel too bad, but they are 10 inches wide, which is way too big for this measurement here since it's only 9.5. And they were pretty heavy because they were solid trucks, especially at a 10-inch. These AF1s being half an inch smaller, plus being hollow, they actually feel so much lighter, so much more comfortable to skate, especially with a 10-inch board. Like, this setup doesn't feel heavy at all. It feels so comfortable and I'm loving it so much. So the first set of AF1 hollows that I skated were 9 inches wide, which were perfect for all my egg boards from 9.25 to about 9.75. But the first problem I came across with those trucks is that the bushings are just way too soft, especially for someone as heavy as me. This wasn't just because they were new either. I gave them a half turn on each kingpin when I first got them because they were just too loose and squirrely. Skated them for 2 weeks, they still never firmed up. They felt just as loose as the first session I had, so I tightened them another half turn. Still super loose, still super squirrely. There was nothing that I could do that made them feel like they wore in properly. I eventually ended up tightening them too much to make it feel comfortable to skate, and then the kingpin nut was hanging out too far, and I had heaps of troubles with Hurricane and Smith grinds because my kingpin would just dig into the rail or the ledge and just stop me and throw me. Lucky for me, a lot of you guys suggested that I swap out the stock bushings for the Ace hard bushings, which is what I did, and that changed those trucks and made them so much better. Those bushings were way more firm, but I was still able to turn really sharply and pinch really well too. Like, my trucks didn't feel tight. I actually took those hard bushings out of my 9-inch AF1s and put them into these trucks today, so I didn't have to go through that horrible process again. So I definitely recommend putting harder bushings in your AF1s because the stock bushings that come with them are just way too soft. Problem 2 that I've found, and how to fix that in a second, but I haven't been to this skate park in a while. So I've got 15 tricks that I want to get done while I'm here, but let's get back into the session, then I'll go over how to fix the second problem. I've got a link in the description below so you can get 20% off Charlie Horse Wax at the checkout. The code is Waxton20, which is sick, but this wax is the best, so make sure you cop some from the link in the description below. I'll take it. So scary. All right, I'm capping it at 10 tricks because it's getting so hot out here, and that fall was terrifying, and that just smashed my back so hard. So end of session right now. This 10-inch board feels so damn good with these 9.5-inch hollow trucks on them. I've been riding 9.5-inch egg boards as my regular setup lately, but after how good this session has felt, I might think about stepping up to 10-inch for my daily setup. That's how good it actually feels. But the second problem that I've found with the AF1 hollows is closely related to problem 1, and that's that the AF1s don't really have a lot of grind clearance to begin with. There's about an 11-degree angle of grind clearance on the AF1s, which to be fair is pretty close to the industry standard, but the slappy inverted kingpin trucks that I rode on this setup previously have a grind clearance angle of 20 degrees, which is the most on any truck ever, and it's almost double the AF1s. What I like to do to kind of counteract this problem is to have my kingpin nut perfectly flush with the kingpin bolt. This way, if you do happen to catch on Hurricane and Smith grinds, rather than the kingpin bolt digging into the top of the ledge or the rail and stopping you, it'll just hit and slip back down to your hanger. It won't actually grab. This definitely makes a big difference since it doesn't just stop you, it'll slip back into the grind and you won't actually get thrown onto your ass. A bonus tip is to also have your axle nut flush against the outside of the axle. This will help reduce your axle getting mushroomed or threaded once it hits the ground or you land primo. I do this on all of my trucks, but it's definitely necessary to do on hollow trucks since the axle isn't as strong and it's much easier to damage the hollow axle rather than a solid one. So the Ace AF1s really are such a good truck, especially with the harder bushings in them. You can get a deeper look into all of the features of the AF1 hollows in this video right here.